Good afternoon, traders. Reaching out to you guys on the 22nd of November. This is the day before Thanksgiving, and you're getting that low volume markup. I had actually created a video on Monday, and it was just so slow and wasn't much to talk about, so I kind of left it. I let it be. Um, First off, I want to thank you for the viewership. I see there's been a spike, and I appreciate that. I hope you enjoy what you see. This is something that I've shared with other traders and be willing to share with you as well. You feel free to reach out. I'd be glad to knock this down a little more than what I have. This is it in its most simplistic form. I think it's the best way for new traders to get on board with something like this. You don't want to overwhelm yourself with all the studies, but everybody has a different approach to trading, and whatever works, works. I keep it pretty simple. I don't like to use too many indicators, and in doing so, I've kind of narrowed it down to where it's best to get involved with this market. And I'm a big believer in the daily pivots, the trader daily pivots, which I used back in the day. Probably a lot more off the floor than I did on the floor, but you could just see its value and how price reacts to these moving averages. Something I continue to emphasize to all traders. So, in a pretty much in short, you can see. And you remember last week we kept holding this 47 area, and you can see this week we've held 44. The trend's up. You want to buy the pullbacks. Those are the opportunities to get on board. I believe we might have had a gap higher one of these mornings, and they came down and they filled it, which they usually do. And then it gave you the opportunity. Usually market up late. Today's been just a one-way trade. This is pretty much going straight up. Um, it's interesting too because I've been keeping an eye on the Nasdaq, and the Nasdaq keeps rolling. Although this is possibly a breakout for them. So, and you can see this is a breakout in the ES as well. So, like I said in earlier videos, the targets is this MA right here, which is the well, it is the 200, and it's a big number. This is coming around 40.50 with probably an extension up to about 41.20. That's maybe where we can go for the next 5 weeks. They're going to probably mark it up, get them nice and cushy all the way up here. I don't like to provide too many opinions. I keep talking about this huge gap, which is still here, 38.70 to 37.70. I gotta believe is going to come into play. So let them finish out December and mark up the quarter. Unfortunately, I hope, I mean, they keep talking, you get it. I think there's just too much information out there, and, it's interesting how now they're starting to say, oh, how this is the next bull. Well, if you really felt that way, then we should be telling people to get on board down here, buy into the break, which is something I like to do. I mean, it's interesting how you start getting all these articles after they've ran them up all the way to 4,000. I mean, realistically, they're only 300 points away from their contract high. It's so they get people to jump on board late, and then they sell into all that volume. Is how I've noticed over all the years. The institutions take advantage of that. So that's what you're looking for on the upside. This is your target, 40.50, somewhere along the line in the next 3 weeks. Who knows? I mean, there's still about an hour left in this day, and looks like they're going to close above 4,000, which is fairly positive. So, and your support comes all the way down here. It's probably going to be closer to 3,900 by the time we get uh, into December, and this MA is going to keep shifting over, and that's coming in at 39.17, which was actually a low. I believe this was that's the 100. So the 100 is going to come in pretty much into this trend line right here. And you know what? We're probably going to create consolidation, and it's going to come to a point. Are we going to break out above here? Or are we going to get suckered in and buy it late? Or are they going to roll over and start to digest a little bit and maybe take some money off the table, and then finally give us that last shakeout all the way down to this number, which I'm assuming is going to come into play. And it might be in January. January could be a busy month. They're going to let it run up, and then they're going to sell into it, and they're going to just slap it. But like I said, this is just my take on it. At the end of the day, you want to trade it the way it is and take advantage of the opportunities to get along if you get them. But don't chase the market. Never chase the market. You get gap higher, you're looking for weakness at the resistance levels, and if you get gap lowers, you're looking for a little support and confirmation at those lows. And you can see how they keep holding. So 44 is going to be your number, and you can see it's going to come into play probably the first week, somewhere in the first week of December. So we're going to see what happens. I mean, you can see here the Dow just keeps going. I mean, look at this markup in the Dow from 28,000, 28.9, somewhere in that ballpark. They just pretty much just rammed them, but the Dow has been outperforming this whole time. So we're going to have to just see how this plays out. So this is pretty much your Thanksgiving markup, or the beginning of your holiday markup. I think there's going to be a little more. You got a high rate here at about 40.40. Is that 40.40? Yeah, it's about 40.40, just below the 2. And that's going to be your first resistance point. We're going to see how the money comes in here. So that's pretty much it. Once again, feel free to reach out to me. Put some comments in the box if you need some questions answered, you want a little more breakdown. I mean, you got to understand it. I'm showing you this on a 15-minute chart, okay? And I can pretty much trade the 15-minute chart, but I like a little more detailed analysis, so I use another platform. It's more of a 5-minute, and it breaks down these bars a lot better. I can see these turns as they're happening, and generally that's my confirmation, and I usually watch to see if the Dow confirms it, because a lot of times we will follow the Dow. And sometimes, the NASDAQ, but the NASDAQ lags, and the NASDAQ is kind of struggling a little bit. So that's what's got me a little concerned about the market as a whole. But, all those stocks are just getting hammered. So, and maybe it was due. So, listen, have a great Thanksgiving. My name is Michael. Feel free to reach out. You could drop me a comment at MR Strategies and or leave me an email at mlbino@aol.com. Guys, enjoy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much.